All right. Well, hey, Thanataar, nice to meet you again. How you doing?
Doing good.
All right. All right. Well, hey, you're a DragonRealms player. How long have you been playing?
I started back during the AOL days, played up till about 2003, then took a 20-year break, and just recently came back.
Oh, really? 20-year break. How different is it?
Night and day. I had to relearn everything. Everything that I thought I knew did not apply to the new DR.
What made you want to come back after all this time?
I recently retired from work and left my MC, so I had to find something to fill in some time. I went, well, let's see if it's still around. And yep,
Did you meet any of your old friends from back in the old days?
Yep. Tath and Lissy, actually, the ones that I got to meet for, they were the original group of people that I ever hung out with or socialized with in the game.
Are they here at the con too, or?
Yep.
Oh, snap. Okay.
Reconnected with another one who's now one of the GMs. Reconnected with one of my old enemies. So it's been good.
All right. Well, where are you from?
Originally, I hate to admit this, but originally California, Oklahoma for the last 11 years.
Okay. Why'd the move?
Because I hate California and all the stupid politics.
Well, we can talk about that if you want to. It's entirely your call. All right. Well, how do you like St. Louis?
It's pretty good.
Yeah. Oh, you plan to do anything else here while you're visiting, or?
No, not this trip, but I'm out here in Missouri quite a bit, visiting brothers from my old club. So.
Okay. Well, tell me about your character.
He's I have two mains that I play. I'm leaning more. When I started, all I ever played was Barbarian. When I came back, I also picked up Thief. And I'm leaning more towards Barbarian again.
Oh, I'm just taking some notes. I write as yeah. So, is there a Thief's Guild?
What guild?
Exactly. So, were you able to recover your character from the 90s?
No.
Oh. That would have been such a great story.
My original character, when it went from AOL and it migrated from AOL, I lost my original character during that move, but I do still have the one from once AOL was gone.
So that was what, late 90s then?
97.
Okay. Well, what do you think of the text-based gameplay?
I love it because the thing that I like the most about any of the text-based games, like if you take the graphics-based, like WoW or something, there's a very set specific thing and everybody sees the same thing. Whereas with a text-based game, everybody interprets what they read to a way that suits their thinking better. So where I'm looking at a room and I'm noticing particular things about it, someone else may be noticing other particular things about it that stick out. I love that aspect of it.
Well, it's imagination. So a barbarian who becomes a thief, or is both?
He has a little brother, which is the thief.
Different character?
Yes.
Okay. Do you engage in role play?
Yeah. Try to. I'm not one of the sticklers for everything has to be RP, but if there's RP going on, I do like to get involved in it.
Okay. What kind of role play do you like to do when you do it?
Like Melly was saying earlier, I like going to the pubs and just hanging out. I like doing things like when they're like with this event that's going on right now, even though I'm not a magic user, I go along to basically perform guard duty while they're doing their rituals. Fun.
Okay. So, do you do the erotic role play? You don't have to answer this, by the way. I did all of it.
Long ago. No, not now.
Gotcha. All right. You do player versus player at all? Okay. All right.
That's probably one of my favorite aspects of the game, and that's the biggest change that I noticed from then to now. Is back then everybody was very guarded and secretive about their special sauce and how they actually were able to perform the way they did. Nowadays, the PvP community, in character, two people may absolutely hate each other and try and kill each other on sight every time, but then through Discord or whatever, they'll be talking, chatting, laughing it up, and giving each other pointers on things.
Huh.
So it's a really nice change.
So you prefer that, really?
Yeah.
Okay. So Magic is having some problems. I'm sure you've noticed.
Mhm.
What do you think?
I'm loving it. Anytime I can see a grown wormy cry makes me happy.
Those are warlocks or
Warrior mages.
oh, warrior mages? Okay.
Because anytime that they're actually able to cast spells, it's usually me that's doing the crying.
So is this in PvP too? The spells are messing up. Oh, that's probably pretty beneficial, isn't it?
It has its moments.
What do you think's causing all this?
Honestly, I put a bit of thought into this, and I think a lot of it stems from the necromancers and the way that they've been treated.
Mhm.
Because in any culture, no matter whether it's a real world culture or if it's an end game, balance is always a key issue. Okay, now a lot of these necromancers, they're not trying to do anything. They're not going out and slaughtering people. Some of the necromancers that I've met are some of the nicest people I've met in the game. But because of their guild, they get treated a certain way. And I think that has thrown things out of balance.
So some of the people, one of the people I interviewed actually is Allie. I just interviewed her, and she kills the necromancers when they're in Thuringia.
Mm-hmm. Yep, the group that I'm part of the Northern Watch. There is the Baron put a no necromancer rule in there, and if they show up, we will politely tell them they're not allowed there, and if they ignore it, then there are members of the Watch that will deal with them.
How do you see this all being resolved? The magic situation or the necromancer situation? They're one and the same, I guess, for you. You suspect.
Yeah, my personal take on it all, but I think the way that it's going to be finally fixed, as it were, is once the stereotype of how people see necromancers is squashed. Because if you think about it, you go all the way back to the Gorbash Wars and everything. Okay, we had horrible ideas of Calder. Okay, now they're a common thing out there, and they're accepted. So I think once that happens with the necromancers, we'll kind of get back more to that balance, which will even things out.
Okay. The Gorbash Wars. That was with the Kaldar, or what was that?
It was either the Gorbash or the Sorrow. Like I said, I've been gone for 20 years, so it all kind of jumbles together.
Okay.
Those past memories.
You have any thoughts on scripting?
Scripting. I think it has a place because up until I came back here, it's only been like 4 or 5 months ago that I ever touched a single script. Everything done by hand before then. I have a extreme hatred for AFK scripters. And one of my biggest complaints in the game is that I can't kill them like I used to without getting in trouble.
Why can't you kill them?
It used to be, it was always against the rules, but the GMs didn't really enforce it because they had so much other stuff on their plate, and they also didn't approve of it. So a lot of times, I think, they would kind of look the other way. Nowadays, with the smaller player base, you can't really get away with it. But yeah, I despise AFK scripters.
All right. Well, maybe you'll be allowed to gank them again sometime.
I hope so.
You have a house in the game?
Nope.
Any thoughts on weddings?
The in-game.
Yeah, in-game weddings. Yeah.
I I think it's actually kind of a cool thing because I've known actually a lot of people who initially met through the game and then eventually it progressed to real life, and so I think it's a cool thing.
Oh, cool. Now you're a returning player after 20 years. So monetization. What do you think of the monetization strategy?
I actually like it because I think that's the only way the game's going to stick around, to be honest, because it's a company, it's got to make money. And the way that they used to do it with, you'd have your little quests that you could run, but those were pretty infrequent, and then you had the subscription. But at that time, you had at normal peak hours 1,400 people playing. Now you've got at peak hours usually about 400, 450. The monetization, the empty events, that's how they are able to keep this game alive. And I personally, I'm willing to pay that extra money to be able to keep coming back to this.
Okay. Now you can answer this one of two ways: the future of the game. So we can answer in terms of the future of the commercial product, and also in terms of the future of the game world itself and where you see that going.
Okay.
Or you can do both if you want.
As far as the game world and where I see it going, it is one of the things that's always been very unique about DR is it is constantly evolving. There's new critters coming in, new provinces, new story arcs. So I don't see that ever really slowing down. Also, you've got all of us who've been playing forever. Well, now we're at the age where our kids are actually starting to get into games and stuff like that. So I think it will continue because it will have a new influx of players coming in. It'll still probably be, pretty niche, but I think it'll be around for a long time.
Okay. All right. And any wild stories from the game, either from you want to do one from the past and one from today, or from the from the '90s and from recently?
Okay. That original group that I told you about that I reconnected with here, we were actually for a while, we were on the no heal list by any empath. And the way that happened was actually because we were helping empaths. We were hunting down and killing anyone who stole from or killed an empath. Yet, because we were doing that in the empath guild, sometimes we got put on the no heal list.
So they didn't approve of you killing the people who were going after them because they were against killing people.
Exactly.
Okay.
So we got put on a no heal list until we got one empath that went, I don't care what you say, and she joined us.
Well, let's think about that for a second, right? They're supposed to do no harm, I suppose, right?
Mm-hmm.
But by not healing you, they are doing harm. So, I mean,
I think it was, honestly, I think a lot of it had to do with, at the time, pretty much a good amount of the healers actually had ties with the people that were doing the stealing and the empath killing, and they were friends, so they were off limits.
oh, so they were in on it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have evidence of that, or
No, that's my personal belief.
okay?
And facts that I've seen them talking together at times, but I mean anybody can do that. But
Mm-hmm. Well, any recent stories since you've returned that you've excited about, or that you've happy to experience?
I'd say since returning, the thing that I'm most happy experiencing is actually relearning the PvP, relearning, all the abilities within the guild, all the difference to stances and the way you used to attack is different, and just seeing how the community has progressed from then to now.
Well, how's it progressed, you think?
I think it's progressed a lot because if you think about it, back in the day, usually when you're younger, you're a lot more hot-headed.
Sure. Yes,
So-
that's true.
People would fly off the handle at any little thing, and because the community wasn't tight knit, it led to actual personal grudges and problems
Mm.
and things that spilled over from character to player. Whereas now, because we're all a bit older and a little bit more wise and laid back, we can separate the player versus character.
Well, that's good. I hope everyone can get along, you know, and in real life, in the game, it's all bets are off, right? But now, did you go to SimuCons in the '90s or no?
Yeah. Well,
Oh,
not the SimuCons. I went to the VegasCon.
okay. What was that like?
A very different experience. That was Party Central.
Yeah.
And most of the time too, when you went to the Vegas cons, you had your set specific little clique that you ran with, and that's who you hung out with at the con, and you partied and you went out and you did whatever. And this I like a lot more because it's, I guess in a way, it's a more intimate setting because you get all these people packed together in the one room, and eventually you're going to talk to somebody that you don't know,
Mhm.
that you may recognize their name in the game, and you get a new friend. So I think it's pretty cool.
That's awesome. Any wild stories from either VegasCon or SimuCon you want to share?
None for a family game.
All right, fair enough. And you ever play any other MUDs?
No.
Any other video games?
I play lots of video games. I did my stint in WoW and the Final Fantasy 14.
Hey, I play that. I used to.
I actually I was a beta tester for the Star Wars: The Old Republic. Beta tested for Lord of the Rings Online. Some of the other main ones. Star Trek Online. I still play Star Trek Online every once in a while.
What's your race in there?
In there, I'm human.
Well, what's the best Star Trek series?
For me,
Yeah, for your personal.
original series.
Okay.
I actually let me do a caveat on that. I have more of an emotional connection to the original series because that was the first Star Trek that I ever saw. Getting to stay up late at night as a little kid watching it with my mom. The reruns.
It's awesome.
My actual favorite of all of them is actually Voyager.
Mhm.
Because Janeway, she was the perfect mix between Kirk and Picard, and the crew, they weren't just carbon copies of the original series with a different name. Like if you take the Next Generation and put it up against the original series, every character basically, other than Deanna Troi, was a carbon copy of someone from the original series, which made me dislike it.
Picard is a bit different from Kirk, though, quite a bit.
He was different from Kirk, but he was also very much like, at that time, the way they kind of portrayed Pike, who was the original captain.
Yeah, in the first episode, right? Was it the Changeling or?
Pike even called his number one, number two. So he was kind of a carbon copy off of Pike. Then you got Worf, who was your carbon copy of Chekhov, except a bigger version. You had Data, which was Spock, just
Once you see it, you can't unsee it.
exactly.
What do you think of DS9?
DS9, that one was very hit or miss for me. There were some that I liked. Like, I liked that the original girl that was the Trill species.
Oh, Jadzia?
Yeah, Jadzia. I liked her. I hated Cisco from the start. He bugged me. Bashir, sometimes I liked him, and sometimes I just wanted to reach through the screen and strangle him when he was whining. But the storytelling of it, I thought was really good.
Yeah, I think the storytelling of DS9 is probably my favorite of them.
Yeah,
but it was also a lot less episodic than Next Generation and TOS.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Any other hobbies or interests you want to talk about?
Hobbies: riding my motorcycle every chance I get, shooting my guns.
Hey, what do you own? If you don't mind me asking. You don't have to tell me.
Oh, I've got an AR set up for marksmanship. I've got an AR set up for CQB. I've got 2 different 9mm. I've got my standard everyday carry, which is my Ruger Security 9. I've also got a SIG P220. I've got a 45, the 1911 A1. Just sold my 40 because I hated that damn thing. I think that's all I got now. Yeah.
Nice. I grew up around guns, but I don't own one personally. Yeah, that might change with with the security situation with being a YouTuber and stuff.
And
some
also
crazy.
with the way things are going nowadays.
Well, I hope everyone stays chill and there's no violence, political violence, or anything like that.
I hope so too. But
Yeah.
the days where people used to be able to sit and debate something and come to a compromise, those seem to be gone. Now it's either these people drank this Kool-Aid and they're not budging, or these people drank this Kool-Aid and they're not budging.
Well, how do you think we can? We don't have to answer that. We can move
I'm
on.
fine with it.
Okay. How do you think we can restore people's ability to have conversations and get along with each other and compromise, like you said?
Honestly, I think a lot of it, sadly, the way we're at now is because of the internet and the ability for people to speak their minds without getting punched in the mouth. I think if we started actually as a society putting emphasis on accountability for your actions,
Okay.
I think that would go a long way. Because nowadays, if you look at all of these people that do things, it's never their fault. There's always someone else to blame. It was my childhood. It was because I was beat as a kid. Hell, as a kid growing up, I used to get the belt all the time because I was a little shit. And I haven't went around on a shooting spree yet.
Well, you say accountability. One of the things that people might point to is that there's examples on the left and the right of this of people engaged in cancel culture, right? So you say something on social media, it goes viral, and maybe you get people calling your work, and they're like, "Hey, look, this person's a Nazi, this person's a whatever." And they try and get you fired, and I think that's hurt, like that quote unquote accountability. Which some people would see it that way. I don't know if you would see it that way.
I agree.
I think that's hurt our society a lot.
And again, a lot of that stems from the fact that people can do this without having to be face to face with somebody. Because it used to be back in the day, it didn't matter who you were. You watched what you said to somebody because they were right there. And if they didn't like it, you were going to scrap, like it or not. And that now you got the age of participation trophy, so nobody actually has to earn anything anymore. You got people that they feel free to actually say things or do things that are cruel or hurtful or just downright disrespectful, that if they weren't sitting behind a keyboard, I guarantee you they wouldn't be doing it.
Oh, sure, 100%. But we're not. The internet's not going to go anywhere. So what do we do? How do we live within this? This is a big question. I don't have an answer. I have no idea.
Unfortunately, I do not know how to get past that either. One of the things, I joined the military at 17. So I think something that could help a little bit with that is if these kids, as soon as they come out of high school, do at least 2 years in the military, because you get to travel some, you see some other cultures, which opens up your mind a little bit to other people's way of thinking. And then that leads to eventually where you can sit down with someone and completely disagree, be on opposite ends and go, okay, you know what? I don't like it, but I can see your point.
Yeah. Well, I am sympathetic to national service, but I would want it to be military as an option, but also have civilian sector options too. If there's areas where
to be like military, like you could go Peace Corps. You could do something that will allow you to serve your country, basically, do your patriotic duty, and at the same time broaden your mind a bit.
Well, and I think you said broaden your mind too, and that being exposed to other cultures. I think even being exposed to people within our own society would be useful, especially for young people, right? You just graduate high school, and then now you have someone who's from California or someone from Texas, and someone from all the different races and ethnicities coming together and religions, and they're all serving as part of a military unit or as part of the Peace Corps or whatever it happens to be. I think that that's probably good for building unity in the country and hopefully bridging a lot of the divides that people feel like they have.
I mean, we've made a lot of progress, I would say, as a society from, when I was a kid to now, because back when I was a kid, there were certain races and certain lifestyles that were just completely, there people were cruel, mean, vicious. Whereas now it's more the norm for people to actually go, okay, you know what? If that's your choice, if that's what you want to do, cool. That's you. It doesn't affect me.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad that I think we made a lot of progress as well. I know it's something that people don't want to talk about, and obviously, that's not to say that everyone's perfect and that there's, obviously there's still issues we can talk
plenty to
about.
be
Yeah,
progress to be made.
sure, absolutely. But I think it's also important, like, to recognize the progress we have made too.
Yes.
Yeah,
And
which we don't always do.
that's also another thing that I think has been a problem lately is, okay, history. It's human history is dirty. It's nasty. It's brutal. But it's there for a reason. Okay. If you don't have that history there, and if you try and change the history to fit your narrative or cancel it out because you don't like it, that's a problem, because that means it's not there for people to learn about and learn from the mistakes made at that time, which means eventually that mistake's going to be made again on down the road.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I actually am. My other book I'm working on, a similar process to this actually, but it's all online. It's not in-person interviews. It's about Gamergate, and so actually I feel like that's something that people can learn from. That unfortunately, if you look at the way a lot of the press covered it, I feel like they did a really bad job. And so, like, I'm going in and I'm interviewing the people involved in it, and trying to, like, fact check the things they say too. I'm not just take everybody at face value. Like, if they just claim something, I'm like, well, what evidence do you have for that, right? Um, but I think it's difficult because I lived through that, and we all lived through it, I guess, because everyone here is old enough to have lived through it, whether they were involved or not. But I feel like that's something where it's important that we get the history right, and I feel like right now we're not for that particular issue, right? And there's other things we can point to in society as well, like, well, with that one we can re-examine, but we have to be able to learn from history, and it's a constant process too of trying to understand what history is and try to understand, like, what actually happened too, because there's new evidence coming up, new archaeological evidence,
Yeah,
and all
you
sorts of stuff.
obviously have to interpret it because what's that old saying? History is written by the victor.
Mhm.
So you're never going to get the actual truth of what happened out of it. As time goes on, like you said, things have been showing up which tell the other side of it.
Mhm.
The way that, and I think this is one of the problems we have, especially in the political spectrum nowadays, is people don't do their research anymore.
That's definitely true.
They will read an article from whichever side of the Kool-Aid drinkers they're on, and they take that as gospel.
Well, I'm reading an article, people don't even do that half the time. It's like, oh, I saw a tweet, or, it's like,
Or word of
okay,
mouth. Saw a TikTok the other day that said,
yeah, what I mean, like, yeah, I mean, I'm a YouTuber, a political live streamer. I try to do research on stuff. I don't have strong opinions on topics unless I, like, know a lot about them. Generally speaking, I try to avoid that at least. But I try to do research on my live stream too, so that way, like, whatever I'm learning, I'm not always good at this. I sometimes do it off air a lot, but whatever I'm learning and seeing on screen, other people who are watching can see it, and, like, if they think, well, look, actually that's wrong, here's why, and they're able to, like, point to better sources or something like that, then I'm being challenged and peer reviewed live. Right. Plus the audience can see, okay, so that's why you drew that conclusion, and it's not just like, oh, well, he said this, right? It's like, okay, here's the trail of evidence that I looked at, and if other people disagree, like, I don't, like, I just care about being right, quote unquote, like getting the right answer, right?
Right.
Not being perceived as being right.
And actually, now that I think about it, you said, how could we get to the point where we could get back to the compromise?
Mm-hmm.
I think that right there is exactly how we do it. Get people to start doing research on stuff before they talk about something, and if they're doing the research, then whatever side they're on, they're going to see that this stuff was written kind of to fit the narrative of their side, and they're going to see holes and flaws and contradictions, and then it's going to be the same way over here because theirs is written to their narrative, which means then that allows you to actually come together and speak about that topic. You both know there's holes and flaws, so now you can talk, speak your own mind, and come to that compromise.
Well, I can't talk about this too much because the powers that be don't want me to, and that's understandable. I told them I would respect that, so I'm not going to really broach the issue. But speaking vaguely here, am I doing that with this project? Because obviously I'm getting a wide variety of perspectives here, and it's about a video game. It's like a relatively low stakes, right? Or two video games, yes, technically. But I'm not interviewing everyone's. I'm not getting everyone's perspective because there's some people's perspective who aren't here, and I would like to include that perspective. And if they're watching, they can reach out to me for sure. I would appreciate that. But am I? If I just run forward with just the interviews I have here at the convention, am I missing part of the story because certain voices are going to be excluded, which is always going to happen anytime you do something like this. But
I think not really so much because like if you took like say you said DR was the left and Gemstone was the right, so you interviewed people from both parties or whatever. There are obviously like you said some that aren't getting to do it, but the thing is because you're doing it on YouTube and whatnot, those people can come in at any time and look over and go, okay, you know what, this person was right. This person actually gave you false information, so they can have the ability to still have their voice heard and their perspective seen.
Okay, yeah, that's right, and especially since we're not talking about. Well, I can't get into that. I'm sorry. I promised.
I'll get
someone I wouldn't. Okay. Oh, the wild cards. Unless you have anything else you want to talk about, like relating to our discussion about civility and politics and compromise.
The only last thing I would say on the politics is probably the only way we really fix that is get rid of all the career politicians.
Yeah.
Term limits. Get rid of the getting kickbacks from this company or that company to pass a bill for them. Until we do that, we're never going to get things completely right.
Okay. I'm a bit more pro system, I guess. But I mean, what do you think of Citizens United? Well, no, we don't have to go here. You want to talk about? I don't know much about it really. I mean, listened to because they do oral arguments. So I listened to the oral arguments and to the closing statement, but I've not read the full case myself. But it's an area where I have an interest because
For which one?
Citizens United versus FEC, the Supreme Court decision in 2000 and
I don't know that one actually.
10 or it might have been 9. Okay, never mind then.
I don't know that one.
And that's the one that allowed. Well, I should probably be able to say okay. It allowed corporations to use money and labor unions as well to influence politics to run like super PACs and it's called, what do they call it? It's a certain kind of expenditure, but basically it's a special kind of expenditure that they call it. But anyway, they're allowed to use money to promote their political views or promote candidates specifically, not just views, but candidates themselves and endorse
fit their views.
Yes,
I disagree with that. I think that needs to go away because, and it's been known, America, you got your elites, your 1%, and then you got everybody else, and everybody else is your middle class, which is they're okay, they're not great, but they're not doing bad. That's a very small percentage compared to the poverty level people. And as long as those 1%ers are making the rules or helping influence the rules, things are going to get better for them, and they're going to keep getting worse for everybody else.
It's a pessimistic take.
It's human nature. Power corrupts. Total power corrupts totally.
All right. You want to take a couple of wild cards? You can take 1 to 3. It's up to you.
What moment in game was the point where you realized this was home?
Aww.
From Naz. I will say from back in the day, way back when, it was actually when I met Path and Lissy, because I didn't hang out with anyone. I didn't speak. I didn't do it. I just I came in and I hunted stuff, and if people wouldn't shut up and kept talking and take me off, I'd kill them. That was all my experience. And they kind of just they pulled me in, and they were like, "Nah, you're one of us." And the feeling that I got from that actual, and it's weird to say because it's in a game, but that fellowship, that kinship connection, that's when I knew this was for me.
That's awesome. I hope they enjoy the mead.
I hope so too.
All right, well, is there anything else you want to talk about? All right. All right. Well, thank you, Thanatar.
Thank you.
All right.